stepping on that mat and teaching students, and taking all that I've learned from my competitive career and being that little girl who obviously was shy and not confident, and just telling them that it's going to be okay, but you have to be willing to put in the work, being honest, genuine, being a good person. I think it's not just about the belt or the uniform. It's about being a good person, your character, and when they see that, and people can see through you, what kind of person you are.
Sure. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of A Black Belt Way of Life. I'm your host, Master Joseph Lupo Jr., and today I am joined by someone I've known for many, many, many years, very, very near and dear to my heart, Master Eleni Koutsilianos, former 5-time USA national team member, international champion, owner of Pulse Taekwondo in Astoria, future phys ed teacher, and you do stunts as well. Man, we got a lot to go over tonight.
We definitely have a lot to go over. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. A phenomenal martial artist in every sense of the word. And I see tonight you brought a couple of things with you on this table. Give a brief description of what you got here.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I'm honored to be here. And absolutely. This is actually my very first competition. I was exactly 8 years old here.
I was 16.
You were 16?
I was 16. I know, because I fought there too.
You were at the same tournament? So yeah, I was about 8 years old here. I was a blue belt. It was my very, very first competition. And I had 2 fights. And after this competition, actually, I don't think I ever fought at the color belt ever again.
Yeah.
To be honest, there wasn't that many girls leading up to after that in that competition. But this is actually what kickstarted my passion for competing at an early age.
Because it was such a huge part of your life.
It's been, and it's still, it still is. And,
still is.
But it was definitely everything. And it's taught me a lot throughout the years. The commitment, the dedication, the sacrifice.
Right.
And at a very young age, it was instilled that, whatever you put your mind to, and you could achieve it.
Right.
And, it's such a, pivotal moment for me too, because it kickstarted everything. My passion for competing, and, I have everything started here. So this was my very first competition, and the rest was history.
Wow. And then also, this is a very, very beautiful piece here. And I know a lot of people here are watching. This was at a time. Now, I have a tremendous amount of appreciation for this right here, this uniform with, the USA on the back, because now Taekwondo has changed in the sense that you go to a competition, everyone's got USA on the back of their uniform. It's not like it used to be, I never, and I always come out and say it, I've never been one to fake the funk. I never made a senior national team. I've had some success as a junior, and I've had some success as an ultra competitor. But this is something that was very, very big, back then, to wear this, Is this your first national team uniform?
This is one of my national team uniforms. It is, to be honest with you, probably, after making the U.S. national team 5 times, it's really not about, the first, the second, the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. Really, it was all those, times that, the sacrifice, the commitment, the dedication to be able to wear, the USA team logo on the back of my uniform. But it's obviously a very special uniform. It's actually, if you see it, it's actually the Nike uniform. They don't actually even make those anymore.
Right.
But it's one of the national team uniforms.
Don't sell it on eBay. Someone will pick it up right away.
No, that's mine. That one belongs to me.
There you go.
But it is one of the national team uniforms, and it obviously means a lot to me. And it's just a representation of everything that I've done. So many times that I want to give up, And I kept pushing myself. I kept going. And it all boiled down to really pushing past my limits. And a lot of time there was a lot of pressure. And, for me, I actually thrived under pressure. I think pressure is a privilege.
Oh, wow.
I think pressure is a privilege. And I think, after making my first national team, I mean, that was a hard moment. It was, everything, especially it being the first one, right? Especially it being the first one, it kind of validates, your training and everything that you put into it. And yet alone to do it again a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time. But to me, it was not just about, just making the team or the medal or that. It was just everything that I had put into it. And that uniform is a representation of, that pressure is a privilege.
Right.
And, you thriving under pressure.
That's amazing. And we're gonna go back to all this stuff, but without further ado, a message from our sponsor, Mr. Joseph Ferrone of White Coat Realty. This episode of A Black Belt Way of Life is brought to you by Mr. Joseph Ferrone of White Coat Realty. For all your real estate needs, both commercial and residential, don't hesitate to reach out to Mr. Joseph Ferrone. All his information is in the show notes. To our official apparel company, Best Martial Arts Muto USA. For all your martial arts needs, check out their info in the show notes. We also have an amazing Taekwondo shoe, Kick Fit. You got a pair of those.
I do have a pair of
They're
those.
nice.
They're awesome.
They're super
honestly,
light.
Probably one of the best pairs I have had to date. Everything has broken, everything. I mean, It's light. It's obviously very fashionable to me.
Yeah.
I mean, really lightweight, and I just love them. I feel good in them, and I'm able to move exactly where I feel without shoes.
Nice.
So
You heard that
definitely
Kick
recommend
Fit?
it.
You heard it straight from Master Eleni's mouth. Kick Fit. BBWOL at checkout for a nice little discount. Check it out. Info is in the show notes. Master Eleni.
Yes, sir.
Let's get right back to business. So always on this podcast, I love hearing inspirations, where that journey began. I mean, obviously, mine. Mine was born in me from my father, probably out of the womb. I tell people it's the true story. I learned how to tie my belt before I learned how to tie my shoelaces, but not everyone's story starts off like that. What was your inspiration? What got you to step into a martial arts school?
Yes, sir. So I started at 8 years old, and it was actually a birthday gift from my parents. Exactly 30 years ago, not to give away my age, but, it started, at 8 years old. I had watched a neighborhood friend of mine. He had his uniform on, and he had come, playing with it. He was doing his form at the time. And I'm like, I really need to start doing that. Wow. I watched him. I was just in awe.
Yeah.
So it was a birthday gift, but what actually started it was I was very, active. I was very adventurous. I was in love with movement. Movement was a way for me to express myself. So that was one of the things, for me is freedom of expression, movement. So after watching, and not only that, I was very into martial arts films at the time. I watched and Power Rangers. I mean, that was like the golden age of everything.
Right.
The Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers. So
which Power Ranger did you want to be?
I mean, I listen. I loved all of them. But I actually definitely wanted to be the Pink Ranger.
Oh,
Pink Ranger. Just loved her move, how she flowed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I started with the Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles. I watched all the Jet Li movies, Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee. And to be honest with you, my mom, when she was pregnant with me, she was watching all the Bruce Lee movies.
Oh, wow.
So I was wondering if that had anything to do with it.
Could be.
You never know.
Could be.
So, watching all those movies kind of kickstarted, I really, again, very adventurous. I loved movement.
Mm-hmm.
I loved sports. And, I literally walked my parents hand in hand. I literally walked them hand in hand to sign me up. And it was a birthday gift. They signed me up for a year of lessons. Mm-hmm. It was a birthday gift. And my parents, being working parents, my grandparents stepped up, and my grandfather had a lot he always brought me there. I was there. I mean, I tell you, at least 4 or 5 days a week. I was, that typical student who really loved martial arts, like just that.
You were never forced to go inside the
I was
Taekwondo
never
school.
forced to go. I loved going so much. It was, I was very passionate about the martial arts from a very young age. And to be honest, my parents didn't even know how good I was. And my grandfather was like, I think you should come see your daughter. I was like, I think you should come see her. I mean, she's actually really good. And then obviously my parents at that point, they understood that it was not just about kicking and punching for me. It was more of a passion.
Wow.
And then for me, that obviously that grew, but I find, martial arts, movement, and sports, it was a way to express myself. And especially, it wasn't always easy. It wasn't always, I was not always confident, especially coming from, having a hearing disability.
See, and now you're bringing me to my next point. You actually just, brought this up, for the audience. You do have a hearing disability.
I do.
What exactly is it? I don't want to, I have a good idea, but tell the audience, exactly what is your hearing disability?
Yes.
Like your range of hearing. What is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm not fully deaf. I'm hard of hearing, and I actually
and you were born like this.
So the combination of things. There was a combination of things that contributed to the hearing loss. So I'm not fully deaf, but I am pretty much fully deaf out of my right ear, and my left ear is about 50%.
Okay.
And I've had hearing aids growing up. I've had different devices, but I just feel like it works for many, but it didn't really after putting it on and off. For different people, it works different ways. But for me, I learned to kind of navigate my world without it. But, having that 50% hearing loss, a lot of times is, out of one ear, 100% in the right ear, and then 50% in the left. A lot of times I'm misunderstood in a way where, if we're in a room full of people, I tend to miss certain things, and so a lot of times people misunderstand me, and that's a lot of times that happened when I was growing up, is that I was misunderstood, or if I didn't respond to something, that I would be looked at funny, and even now, like even just sitting here, I have to make sure I'm reading your lips.
Yes.
So it's not just about the hearing; it's also about communicating.
Okay.
And one of the things that I learned was to lip read.
Oh,
so
wow.
that for me, combining, and to be able to have, speech and to be conversational, because that was something that I learned growing up with my, some of the best hearing teachers that I've had, who've worked with me from a very young age all the way up to high school. These are hearing teachers I had developed relationships with, who, helped me master lip reading. So for me to be able to speak, I have to put two and two together. And for me, the disability, for me, doesn't, back then, it felt like, it was defeating. I felt like, felt like less than, but for me, over time, it actually felt like it was giving me a superpower.
Okay. And did martial arts provide that for you?
Martial arts provided that for me, and how it helped me was hyperfocus, like to hyperfocus on something, especially, not being able to hear and really concentrating, on being able to read someone's lips. For example, like when you're focusing on your target, right? How many times do you have to hit that target to, be proficient or be successful and be excellent at that kick?
Yeah.
How many times do you have to aim for that target, right? You're hyper-focused on that one thing that you want to get better at, So I take that, hitting that paddle or hitting that target or hitting that shield or your opponent, and taking that hyper-focus into being able to kind of dial it and pay attention with more intention, be intent with it, and pay attention to facial expression, pay attention to movement. Sometimes people, don't think that I'm paying attention, but I'm paying attention in a way that sometimes even other people start to miss now.
And now, from the flip side, how you're talking about, you're hitting something, Now you have your opponent throwing a kick at your face. Were you able to, as you put it, you used your disability as pretty much an advantage, as you put it, like a superpower.
In a way, yes.
In a way. Did you feel like you were able to pick up on certain things from your opponent?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially, when you teach young kids, you teach them eye focus, mind focus, body focus, right? So that kind of focus, obviously from competing from a very young age, it definitely plays into everything from martial arts and life now. So seeing my opponent, like being able to analyze my opponent, definitely played into that hyper focus, and having that laser, kind of being able to dictate their movement a little bit, and that's why, that hyper focus and watching their move, watching their facial expression, watching where their eyes go, watching what their mouths do, so all that is connected together. And, it's, again, back then, I don't know if you know this, but in 1990, the Disability Act was passed then, and it was not very much spoken about. Growing up in the 90s and 2000s, having a disability, again, was not very much spoken about. It's not something that you wanted to, so it felt like a defeat for a bit until I figured out, it's not really a defeating, it's not how can I say it?
It's not a disability.
No, it's not a disability. It's not.
If you look at it as one, it will be.
No,
but you didn't. Listen, you had the confidence.
I had my moments. Yeah. I had my moments, but I built my confidence, and confidence is not something that happens overnight. And I think that you want to build your confidence, and it's the same thing I tell my students. I say, confidence is not a 1-2 fix. It's something that you constantly have to work on, and that is something that played into it as well. It's building up your confidence, and all that played into my competitive career, right? Being able to have that kind of focus to the point where, like, even other people are missing out on certain things. So I think it definitely played into, kind of turning my disability into a superpower.
Yeah, because now as a competitor, let's move forward a little bit. Now you're not this cute 8-year-old girl anymore. Now you're a junior high level fighter, fighting adult at that time.
Yes.
And now you're fighting in the big arenas and everything. Now, I'm sure there were many times that with all the noise and everything going on, you were fighting on your own probably at that point,
the only time that I was being coached at that time in the arena, especially with it being loud, and was only when we had that break, right?
Yeah.
When we had, sitting down when the match was the end of the round, going to speak to your coaches. I had to memorize every little detail. And that takes, again, the kind of mind focus that takes.
Extreme amount of focus.
It's extreme.
Unless you're turning the fight around and you're able to.
That is one of the things, that was always one of the strategies.
Exactly. Turn the fight around so that you could see your coach, whether you're reading their lips or they're giving you a hand signal or something. But other than that, while the actual fight was going on, it's all here. It's all
mental.
It's all
everything
mental.
is one in the mind.
Right.
Everything is one in the mind. And that was something I always prepared myself for is, I always did practice a lot of visualization, especially, again, not being able to hear during the actual match. I had to, swing the fight around. I had to watch for the hand signals. I had to be able to read the coach's lips and memorize everything in between rounds. I mean, that in itself, that's a tiring. That in itself is something tiring. And then you still have the physical aspect.
Right.
You still have the physical aspect.
You got to connect the body to the mind.
Correct.
Mind to the body. Sure.
That is correct. So it took an incredible amount of mind focus just to do that. And then add on the physical aspect of fighting. And anyone who knew me, I left it all on the mat. Like anyone who knew me, anyone who remembered me training, anyone who knows how I train, knows that every time I train, I leave it on the mat. Every time I fought, I mean, the moment I started the match, my kiap was so loud, you knew that I was fighting. The spirit that I had. And again, it all stemmed back to that little girl who was frustrated with not being able just, to communicate, to speak, So I think for me, again, martial arts is freedom of expression. And
it was
one
your
of the
outlet.
ways, it was my outlet.
Yeah.
It was definitely my outlet. It was definitely my outlet. And it was the way I expressed myself in so many ways.
Yeah. Now, for a lot of the viewers, there's a lot of the viewers and listeners of this podcast that are, past Taekwondo athletes or current Taekwondo athletes. They always love to hear, when I had, Coach Mark Williams that you know very well. I had him on, and I told some people he was coming. He's like, yo, you got to ask him, who was his toughest fight? Like, who was, his greatest moment, accomplishment? Like, so from that perspective, tell the audience, who was your toughest competitor? Like, who were you looking at when you were coming up? Be like, I got to beat that person.
I mean, there were definitely a few women back in the day.
Yeah.
Diana Lopez.
Okay.
She was definitely, up there. She was one of the people to beat.
Mm-hmm.
I aspired to be like her. But, as anything, it's a competition.
Sure.
It's a competition, and you definitely want to get in there and, give it your all. At the end of the day, you want to win, right?
Sure.
You want to win, but you obviously want to win with respect, lose with respect.
Mm-hmm.
But she was one of the competitors then at the time. And then Danielle Holmquist, she was definitely an amazing fighter out of Miami, training with Juan Moreno.
Mm-hmm.
I think we went head to head so many times for that national team spot.
Wow.
I mean, she was definitely an amazing fighter herself. To have a match at that level, and to have two women fighting at that time, like at their best. I mean, it's a competition. You want to win, but hands down to all the competitors who fought at that time, it's not easy. It's not easy, but definitely she was Diana Lopez and Danielle Holmquist.
Yeah.
They definitely were some of the toughest fights for sure.
Now, on an international level, because obviously making the team 5 times, internationally, what was your greatest accomplishment?
Internationally, so it's not a win per se.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, it was the World Cup in Thailand. It was the World Cup in Thailand, one of the competitions that we all had gone to. It was first match of the day, fighting against the home country, against Thailand. And you know how it is when it's the home country, you're not just fighting that competitor. You're fighting the whole arena.
You're fighting the country.
You're fighting the country. You're fighting the country.
Yeah.
It was first match of the day. It was just an amazing match. I mean, high pressure. It was the technicality of the fight was, throwing double kicks, throwing hook kicks. I was winning pretty much the whole match. It was an incredible match. And then about 30 seconds left in the match, she scored a head kick. And I thought I had scored a head kick right back. A spinning, I can pretty vividly remember it was a spinning hook kick. They don't give it to me, home country.
Yeah.
Obviously I didn't wind up winning that match. And, for me, it was, one of the greatest matches that I had. Unfortunately, it wasn't a win, but, you learn as much as from your losses.
Of course.
From your wins.
You learn more from losing than winning.
And especially it being such a high-level tournament, the World Cup. You're fighting home country. You're fighting, the best of the best, and you're giving it your all. And for me, it was such a high-pressure moment with the entire arena watching. I didn't crumble under pressure. I actually loved that kind of pressure. I mean, it really brought out the best in me, So obviously, it's a defeat. It's not a win. But, I stepped off the mat. Obviously, as a fighter, you're beating yourself up about it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not obviously happy, but, that was in the moment. And then you take another step back, you take a deep breath, and you look back and you think about all the hard work that you put into it, and understanding that you gave it your all. I mean, for me, that every single time when you give it your all, knowing you gave it your all, and you say, hey, there was nothing else I could have done, fine. You have room for improvement. You always have room for improvement. Always. But in that moment, I step back, take a deep breath, and I know I gave it my all. And every single fight I left it on the mat, and I always knew that I left it on the mat, and I always left whether I won or like I lost, that I knew I gave it my all, and that was the kind of fighter I was, you know. So for me, not necessarily a win, but it was one of my greatest moments for me personally, and honestly, probably the first time I'm sharing this, but that match was an incredible match, you know. Wish I would have won, but you know, at the end of the day, again, I learned so much from the losses as much as from the wins, and you know, it just again it builds into the person that you want to be and become.
No, it's great to hear things like that. You know, it's it's easy, as you put it, you know, for anyone to talk about their biggest wins or their biggest victories, but again, you know, I honestly feel, and this is something you've heard me say many times to my students, you know, we learn way more from losing than we will ever from winning. It definitely shapes us. And now moving forward, your post-competition career, now you go into teaching the martial arts. How did your competitive career, all your successes, your highs and your lows, as you just put it, you know, something that many would consider a low would turn out to be your biggest high, you know. How did you bring your post-competition career into now paying it forward? You know, now when you see that little girl that walks in to the school and they look shy or they're not too confident, you know, how did that part of your career shape you now as a teacher?
You know, really it's all about the lessons along the way, you know, your teammates, you know, everything that your teammates, you know, being a good teammate. What is being a good teammate? You know, is it their energy, right? Teaching them how to be a good teammate, how to contribute, you know, confidence, right? Positive self-talk, you know, positive self-talk.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times, you know, you have this day and age.
That's something Tony Graff brought up a lot on the episode.
And
positive self-talk.
And I listened to him a lot, and a lot of the things that he says is all about, you know, sports psychology, and it's something that I've been diving deeper into to help, you know, my students, especially in today's day and age with everything being digital and everyone on the phone. You know, the confidence right now is at an all-time low, you know, hiding behind the screens, I'm going to have a student hiding behind their hair. I'm like, you know, just to simply look at people in the eyes, you know, teaching them the simple lessons as well. You know, it's just stepping on that mat and teaching students, you know, and taking all that I've learned from my competitive career, and being that little girl who obviously was shy and you know, not confident, and just telling them that it's going to be okay, but you have to, you know, be willing to put in the work. Be willing to put
and
in
also
the work.
seeing them eye to eye at their level,
right?
Not looking down at them.
No, exactly. You know, seeing them eye to eye, not looking down on them. You know, how and just being, you know, honest, genuine. You know, being a good person. I think it's not just about, you know, the belt or the uniform. It's about, you know, being a good person, your character, you know, and when they see that, and, you know, people can see through you, you know, what kind of person you are.
Sure.
You know, being able to teach my students, you know, the same, you know, it's confidence is not something that you have all the time. And even as adults, you know, you have to constantly rework it. It's not something you consistently have. It's not something you'll have all the time.
Sure.
You know, you have to work at it, you know, work on your fitness, work on your, you know, put in the work. And I think a lot of the time your confidence comes from actually putting in the work. And, you know, so what I try to do is I try to lead by example. You know, I'm still very heavily into my own training. You know, I try to, you know, push myself in many different ways. And I want my students to see that, you know, it's not just I have confidence and I just have it. And I just have it, just magically have it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a magic pill. You know, confidence is something that you have to consistently work on and practice. So that's what I tell them all the time. And, you know, a lot of positive self-talk. You know, if I correct a student, I want to know what they're thinking. I want to know what they're thinking, you know. I want to know what they're thinking if I correct them in a specific way, or, you know, if they think, hey, Master Eleni just corrected me, I'm not good. You know, I want to change that narrative in their mind. Say, Master Eleni corrected me because X, Y, and Z. You know,
because she cares about me.
She cares, right? Because she cares, and she really wants her students to succeed, not just as a martial artist, but as, you know, in life, like with anything and everything they want to achieve. You know, so, you know, it really goes down to being able to transfer that confidence and transfer that positive self-talk into, you know, anything that they want to achieve. And really it comes from putting in the work, right? You have to be willing to put in the work.
Sure.
So that's something that I really try to talk about a lot.
Now, having this mindset, which is great to hear. I really hope, you know, those listening, you know, really understand everything you're saying when it comes to the mindset of being a good teacher. Obviously, you know, you're bringing up how, you know, basically we are students always first. We're forever learning.
Always.
We never stop learning. But now, with this mindset and your accolades as a successful Taekwondo competitor, fighter, national team member, international champion, you're a school owner in a male-dominated industry. Was that tough in the beginning?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, it was absolutely tough. It was, can I do this? You know, will I be looked at the same? Will I earn that respect? Will, you know, I'm not your typical, you know, school owner, and, you know, will I command the respect that I think I deserve? You know, so there was definitely a little bit of fear in that. You know, so a lot of times, just again, it boils down to that fear and turning that fear that it's not a barrier and kind of fueling that fear to say, hey, I can do this. You know, obviously easier said than done, but it goes down to putting in the work and believing in yourself, right? Believing that you can actually do it, you know. And to be honest, there's always people out there who want to see you fail. But there's also an incredible amount of people who want to see you succeed. And again, I'm blocking out all the noise.
I know that guy.
You know, so, you know, it's that thing where, like, block out the noise, you know, block out the noise. And I'm kind of good at that, literally and figuratively. Right. You know, but, you know, blocking out the noise and kind of staying true to your path. You know, again, obviously not easy.
Never is.
Sometimes I'm like, I still get, you know, that occasional person walking in and, can I speak to the school owner? Can I speak to the master? I'm like, I'm right here.
Yeah.
I'm right here. Yeah. You know how many times that's happened in the last 9 years? You know, and I still have that happening every now and then. You know, asking to speak to the master, and, you know, you get this woman, and then they look at you like, I'm right here. Yeah. You know, so, but I have to prove myself over and over again. I have to prove myself to, you know, the community. For people who don't know of my accolades, they don't know what I've accomplished. So I have to, you know, roll my sleeves up, get on the mat, and prove it to them over and over again. And then they're like, and then by the end of the lesson, they're like, wow. Yeah. I understand now. Like, you know, so it's just like constantly proving it over and over and over again to everyone else, but more importantly to myself.
Sure, because that's the most important thing. And you brought up something very important. 9 years later.
9 years later.
9 years later, which in the concrete jungle of NYC is an accomplishment in itself. You know, it's not easy owning a business in New York.
It's tough. I have to say it's tough. You know, it is. I'm not going to lie. You know, there's been times where I didn't think I was going to make it, you know, for a variety of reasons. But, you know, I always think about, you know, my journey and, you know, martial arts forever will always exist for me personally. But it's just a gift. It's like everyone needs to have this part of their, like, it's for everyone, you know? But 9 years later, actually 9 years exactly, in October.
Wow.
In October. So that will be 9 years later, which to me flew by. It flew by. Why? Because I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. It's fun. You know,
right?
It's fun.
I still teach that to my students to this day. You know, when students come up to me and ask me, "How long you been doing Taekwondo?" and I tell them, I'm 45 years old, 42 years.
42 years.
I've been doing this.
I'm 30 years.
and they go, why? And I look at them and I'm honest with them. I'm not being jokeful with them. I'm not trying to be cute with them. And I look at that kid and I say, because it's fun. At the day this stops being fun, I go pick another career. But knock on wood, that day hasn't come, and I don't ever foresee it coming. You know, at the root of all this, you know, this journey that we're on, it's got to be fun. You got to enjoy what you're doing.
You know, and I think that's something I wish I can go back and tell my younger self, because I was a very serious competitor. I mean, it was all or nothing for me, you know. Yeah. And my parents, they did tell me to have fun. My parents were amazing. You know, they advocated for me all the time for my hearing disability. You know, they were there at every competition. They did everything and anything they could to get me to that competition. They sacrificed so much. Mm-hmm. And they did tell me to have fun, but I just wished I listened to that a little bit more, you know, because martial arts is fun. It's fun, mm-hmm. you know, and that's obviously another reason that keeps me going. It's fun. And it's just so many lessons within the martial arts that have to be passed down to the next generation, mm-hmm. you know, especially in modern times where just a million things going on in the world, you know, but having, you know, martial arts is an incredible gift.
Yeah. And now it's so much fun for you that you've kind of segued school owner. Let's bring this back. Successful competitor, successful school owner, and now it's so much fun. You segued into the world of movies.
Yes, sir.
And stunts.
Yes.
I'm sitting down in my office one day and I'm seeing you getting lit on fire. You know? So let's get into that. You know, I would love to dive into, you know, obviously I could see where it started, you know, your love for the movies and all that. And now you're venturing into the world of stunts.
Yeah.
And movies. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, what inspired you to do that? Why did you want to do that?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not advocating, audience, if you're watching and listening, I'm not advocating getting lit on fire in any way, shape, or form.
There's a madness to that.
I'm sure there's a method.
And a method and a madness.
You've heard me say that many times. So let's dive into that a little bit. Talk to me about stunts.
Obviously being adventurous, always wanting to push the boundaries and, you know, see where, you know, push myself, having martial arts at the background. And first of all, stunts is so many things. It's not just martial arts,
sure.
right? It's being lit on fire, it's being get hit by a car, falling, like the creative art of falling down and making it look like real good that you actually fell down and really hurt yourself, you know, getting shot.
Wow.
It's a lot, you know, and, you know, it's the martial arts has given me the foundation. So for me, it's another creative outlet. You know, again, it goes back to freedom of expression. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, just, you know, obviously physically, there's a lot going on in that world, but creatively as well. And just being able to tell a story, whether it's through a fight scene or, you know, kind of seeing where that goes. For me, it's a creative outlet. It's something that I enjoy, and it's something the martial arts has given me a background in. But like I said, there's so many aspects of stunts. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm enjoying the journey on that. It's a process. You know, one day, hopefully, I'll be on a TV show or a movie.
So that is the goal.
That is a goal. Absolutely. Yeah. That is one of my goals. That is one of my goals, especially, being in the martial arts for so long, just kind of pushing where that can lead. And again, that's something that's, I think I'm having fun with it. I'm really having fun with it. And it's another creative outlet. It's opportunity that I want to create for myself and just kind of seeing where that goes.
Now, is that another facet that you've brought into your school besides teaching Taekwondo? Is that something that you've, spread to all your students?
So I've met an incredible amount of people, and
sure, I can only imagine the networking.
Super talented. I mean, the amount of talent out there is incredible. I've held a lot of seminars at the school. People constantly reaching out for, just to improve on their technique, on their kicking ability. So, a lot of the community knows that I'm the Taekwondo girl. I'm known as the Taekwondo girl. And a lot of people who want to improve on that come to the school. So it's something that I've opened up the school to, and for anyone who wants to improve on their technique, that's where my forte is, right? So I have a lot to go for myself and a lot to learn, as always. As everything, I'm always a student, always learning. But I've definitely opened up my school to the community, to the stunt community. So it's definitely something that is continuing and building.
You hear that, stunt world? Come see the Taekwondo girl at Pulse Taekwondo in Astoria. There you go.
There we go.
Info is in the show notes. But that's great. That's great. Have you gotten hurt?
I have, but I don't know if it's necessarily from stunts. And I'll tell you why. Because after taking a long beating, all these years of putting my body through an intense amount of training, I think it's already wear and tear. And whatever's happening now is probably not from stunts. It's probably adding on to it.
Right.
But I, just wear and tear on the body. Nothing serious. I mean, I do have some injuries that I'm dealing with or deal with, as everyone and anyone does. But I try to find a way to, strengthen. I do go out of my way to just learn a little bit more about, mobility, like different kind of mobility movements, different strength and conditioning. I mean, I worked with an incredible physical therapist. I mean, he got me to, feel better. I mean, my hip, I do have some injuries, but just, again, a lot of wear and tear from, just competing. But anything now is the added on stuff. But thank God, I'm still able to move. But as always, still putting in the training, looking to put in my strength and conditioning, my road work, my cardio. I jump into dance classes. I jump into boxing classes. I jump into, so I'm always, trying to push myself in not just martial arts ways, but
stepping out of your comfort zone.
Stepping out of my comfort zone. And I think, for people to take risk, not to be afraid to take a class that you normally don't take. So for me, it's stepping out of your comfort zone. And that's another thing I try to teach my students is to take risk, to take chances, because you never know what could happen or what it could be. What's the worst that's going to happen, right? That you have to try again. Just like breaking that piece of wood.
Or somebody might say no.
Right. And just breaking that piece of wood, right? How many times has a student not broken it on the first try? You encourage them to go through that second or that third and whatever it takes. So for me, it's to take risk, explore. So that's for me, that's what that's about.
No, for sure. I mean, listen, I notice, for the audience to understand how much respect I have for you, my own niece trains with you.
Yeah.
She's
amazing.
Yeah. And when I mention that to people, they're like, what do you mean? Shouldn't your niece be training with you? I'm like, no, my sister lives in Astoria. Why would I send someone else? It's just, they're up the block from you. And I know she's in amazing hands. Why wouldn't I want her to learn from you? She'd have to come see her uncle every now and then. But, you're great at what you do. And I see it. And I really want the world to know it. How great you are as an instructor, as a teacher, as a role model, someone who has overcome so much. It's you deserve your flowers.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
it's super important for me to express that. And I'm going to bring this to another point. You know, Master Eleni, I had the honor of promoting you. How many years ago now?
It has to be 11 years ago.
11 years
if not more.
I'll tell you now. We're in 20. Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, 12 years ago.
Not the last time I tested.
12 years ago, I had the honor of promoting you to 4th Dan Master Instructor. And now coming up soon in December, I will be promoting you to 5th Dan Black Belt. What does that mean to you?
It means the world to me, to be honest. You know, it's everything leading. This one's for me. You know, not that, you know, all these things, you know, making the national team, you know, not that this wasn't for me, but this one's extremely personal, you know, and it's my life's work, really, you know. And
the beauty of it is your own students are going to see this.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited. This is a, you know, a moment definitely. I can't wait, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have so much fun, and it's again another way to push past, you know, again getting back to that drawing board and putting in more work. You know, you always have to, you know, put in the work, but to do it with you and to do it again for 5th Dan is a complete honor, and obviously knowing who you are as a person, I think I admire that. The absolute most, because as we know, is not this world hasn't been the most incredible coaches out there, and you know, it was definitely some times where, you know, I struggled to get back on that mat with experiencing some, you know, not so good coaches, but you know, to have you in my corner and to be able to look at someone like you and just a good human being. And on top of that, an incredible master, you know. So to do that with you, it's an honor, and my family will be there, my students will be there, so it's going to be an incredible moment. I'm really excited.
Nice, and thank you very much. It is. I always say it all the time as one of our greatest joys of being, you know, instructors is. I get more satisfaction from seeing others succeed. And because it makes us succeed, you know, as a community, you know, it keeps us all together, it keeps us all positive. You know, we should all want to see each other succeed in this world, you know, whether it's from a martial arts aspect or more importantly, a life aspect, and paying it forward to the future generations. You know, that little kid that white belt that might just join your school in November or December, a week before your test might be there, and you might change their life. That is something I always think about, you know, changing someone's life for the better.
You got look at my hair, Master Joe. You're just digging on my hair.
Goosebumps. It's true, you know, and that's why we have to take such a responsibility in what we do. You know, it's so important, as you put it, and you know it from being in my school so much. You know, when you walk in there, you know, a leader leads by example is up on the wall. You know, we can't fake the funk. You know, we can't live a different life in and out of the school. I'm a firm believer, you know, we have to be true to ourselves, and I'm proud of you because you've done that, and you deserve, you know, like I said just now, you deserve your flowers, and that's gonna be a great day.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I can't wait.
Yes, I'm excited.
I'm
really excited, and it really is an honor. And it's again, this one is a personal one because it's you know, how many 30 years later, and I only want this to continue.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to go. The journey is still going.
Never ending. Now, my final question of the night, getting back to, you know, this beautiful picture here and this amazing uniform. What would you tell the little kid coming up that wants to succeed, not just in Taekwondo, but in life? What would you tell them? What's your piece of advice to them?
Really, it's something that I touched upon, a moment ago, is self-belief, being able to take chances. Don't be afraid, and then ultimately to have fun. It's in life, life is already, challenges. Life in itself has challenges, and it's tough, and it'll knock you down. And, Taekwondo and martial arts teaches you to stand back up, and, you want to take that with anything and everything that you want to do. And just don't be afraid, take chances, take risk. And at the end of the day, you got to have some fun too, because it's already serious. So I think, that's something that I want to, if that student coming up is to believe in themselves. It's simple. Yeah. Self-belief, simple.
Nice. Amazing. And now for everyone watching and listening, where can we find out more info about you?
Yeah. So you can follow me at Pulse TKD Center at my Instagram handle, Facebook. You can also find me on my personal page, which is Eleni_Lianos. Yeah. And you can follow me there. I mean, I'm always putting something up. It's, just having fun with it. But everyone can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook.
And hopefully soon, God willing, the big screen one day.
That's right. Hopefully. That is the goal. That'll be the goal.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
And with that being said, please check out our sponsor, Mr. Joseph Ferrone of White Realty, our official apparel company, Best Martial Arts Muto USA, for all your martial arts needs. Check them out. To KickFit Taekwondo shoes, BBWOL at checkout for a nice little discount on an amazing pair of shoes. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. Remember the words my father always said: a black belt is worn around your heart, never your waist. A Black Belt Way of Life was produced by Press Record Studios.